The African Heritage Center. Our website is www.theafricanheritagecenter.org. All right. Feel free to become a member, share our platform with your friends, your families, and support us. Be a part of us. Be a part of what is taking place. The idea behind the African Heritage Center, you will learn a little bit more about that in a little bit. Okay? Our first speaker this afternoon will be Dr. Andre Kearns. He is a African ancestry and genealogy and diaspora strategist leader. So he has a small presentation for us, and so I ask that you just give him your ear and be ready to get involved in the conversation. Dr. Kearns, good to have you this afternoon. If you want to give us a little bit more about yourself and what you do exactly, and then take it away. Okay?
Happy to do that. First, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay. So that's the sound check. And now let me share my screen. Can you see?
I'm going to ask that the volume be raised a little bit for you. Just bear with us. Dr. Kearns, can you try again?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. And can you see my presentation?
Yes, we have your presentation.
All right. Well, I'll kick things off then. Listen, happy Juneteenth. It's an honor to be invited by the African Heritage Center to deliver this talk, Ancestry Tracing for People of African Descent. So just a little bit about me. My name's Andre Kearns, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Black Ancestries, and it's a genealogy services company that helps people of African descent to uncover, to celebrate, and to preserve their powerful family history. So as I was preparing for what I was going to talk about, we had a preparation meeting for this session, and Mr. Ken Jeffers, as part of the discussion, actually issued me a challenge which stayed with me, and that was that he said many people of African descent may not automatically see why tracing your ancestry matters or is of value to you. Some of us identify maybe primarily as Canadian or African American or Jamaican or Trinidadian or Haitian or simply as Black. And so we may not yet feel compelled to pursue genealogy. It's like, I know who I am, and why do I need to know any more than that and what came before me? And so with that context, I wanted to start this talk by addressing that very question. Why should someone care about tracing their roots? And then once I set that up, then I'm going to shift into a little bit of teaching of how one can do it. So I like to start with my own inspiration for tracing my roots. And that is, and I've been a genealogist now for 20 years. I've been on this journey for 20 years. But my inspiration for tracing my roots started with Alex Haley in Roots. And so I do remember watching the premiere of the Roots miniseries on television as a young child. And so, like millions of people, I was really inspired by it. And so what I didn't know then when I was smaller was that watching that miniseries Roots planted a seed in me that has now blossomed into a full-blown passion, some might say obsession, with tracing my ancestry and also my specific connections to the motherland, to Africa. And so perhaps more importantly, what Roots provided me was a dream that one day I might, like Alex Haley, be able to trace my own ancestry back to a named ancestor born on the continent of Africa. And in Alex Haley's case, that ancestor's name was Kunta Kinte, and he was the protagonist of Roots. So why trace your roots? Here's how I'm thinking about it. Why should a Jamaican, a Canadian, a Trinidadian, a Haitian, or African American care about tracing their roots. So I came up with at least five reasons that I wanted to share with you. First is that we all inherit more than just our DNA from our parents and from our ancestors. We inherit from our ancestors resilience. Hi, sorry, someone is speaking. If you can go on mute, thank you. We inherit resilience. We inherit courage, faith, entrepreneurship, and leadership from our family tree. Family history combats historical erasure. Enslavement in the United States and throughout the Americas attempted to separate us from our history, from our names, from our languages, our families, our places, our contributions. And so genealogy really is empowering and equipping us to go into uncover and to reclaim our own family history and heritage and to share that forward. Knowing our story changes how we see ourselves. So through my company, Black Ancestries, I'm able to share with our clients how they descend from abolitionists, from veterans, educators, entrepreneurs, and landowners. And so those clients can see how those ancestors created a legacy that now extends to them. Tracing your roots gives us an opportunity to reconnect with the broader African diaspora. It connects us to our communities, migrations, other nations, and the global diaspora whose history is shared and intertwined and has been for many, many centuries. And then finally, by tracing our roots, it helps us to understand that we're part of something bigger. It's a legacy that started long before us. It's a legacy, a family legacy that flows through us, and it will continue after us. And so that then the question of why trace your roots now leads to, okay, you made some valid points, perhaps. And so now the question is it even possible for me as a descendant of Africans to, given the history of our people, to trace my roots? And so what I would say is that many people believe that African ancestry cannot be traced because of our history, because of the history of slavery. And so this is what genealogists call the brick wall. When you can go trace back to a certain point, but because of a system like slavery, where we are not documented as citizens or people in the country in which we're living, then there's not much more we can do. But what I would say is, yes, researching our ancestry can be difficult. It is certainly, we're dealing with imperfect information, but is far from impossible to achieve. And so there are records that exist. There's also a record in our very own, etched in our very own DNA that we can tap into to help trace our ancestry. There's valuable oral history that we can gather from our family elders that exists that we should be collecting. There's also community history that we should be gathering and collecting. And so if you gather all of those things, it'll help you uncover more on your ancestors than you might think was possible. And so what also helps is having the expertise to know where to look for information on your ancestors and exactly what to look for in order to trace your ancestry. So when people ask me, how do I get started on my family history journey, I always come back to them with a 4 foundational step approach. And so I share these with pretty much in pretty much every talk that I give because they work no matter where you're starting. And so the first step is to create a family tree and really write it down on pen and paper or buy some family tree software or get online and use a service like Ancestry. Begin with what you know and start to build your way back from there. Step 2, talk with your family. I referenced that before. Talk with family, your parents, your grandparents, family elders. Oral family history is often our richest source as African descended people to tap into the history of earlier generations whose stories perhaps were not written down. Third, extend with traditional historical records research, looking at census records, vital records such as marriage records and death records, church records, court records, and many, many other records that are available to us. And then fourth, I would say discover with DNA testing, which can help you confirm relationships that perhaps weren't documented in the historical record, but they're etched again in our DNA. And so at Black Ancestries, our expertise is especially rooted in this third step, this rigorous historical records research. We do that for our clients. And so this is often where people get stuck because they're just, it's not about just finding records. It's about knowing which records to look for, where to find them, and how to analyze them in context. And so I want to give you a glimpse into what that expertise looks like in practice. So if you look at the right side of this slide, here's an example from one of our client projects. So in this particular client project, we traced one of our clients back to their third great grandfather, and he was an African American man from North Carolina, and his name changed 5 times over the course of his lifetime. And so in the historical record, you see this in the table, he appears as Daniel McNair in a cohabitation record from 1866, as Daniel McNeese in an 1870 census record, as Daniel Peel in an 1871 marriage record, as Daniel Shelley in 1910 and 1930 in the US Census, and then in the death records of his children, he's listed as not only Daniel Shelley, but Daniel Shirley. And so without really understanding the historical context of emancipation and how our African American formerly enslaved ancestors may have multiple last names until they settled on the one that they were most comfortable with in emancipation. These could easily look like 5 different men, but with careful analysis and an analytical view to this and the experience of working with these emancipation style records, we're able to reconstruct that this is one continuous life and be able to introduce this man to his descendants through our work. So this is the type of work that we do every day, helping our clients move past confusion and ambiguity into clarity and connection with their ancestors. And now I also want to speak up. That was around kind of step 3 in doing that records research and analysis, the importance of that. Now I want to actually move into step 4 and talk a little bit more about that. And that's speaking about the value of DNA testing. So first, what is genealogical DNA testing? Well, in short, it estimates your ethnic admixture, what percentage of your ancestors from hundreds of years ago were originally from the continent of Africa or Europe or indigenous to the Americas, for example. And it also helps you to discover and to verify ancestral relationships and really uncover deeper ancestral roots. And so there are 3 specific types of DNA tests that if you're interested in DNA testing that you could consider taking. The first is called an autosomal DNA test. And so it tests the markers in your found in your 23 DNA chromosomes. And so what you get back from this test are it's an estimate of your ethnic makeup. And so you see a snapshot of my Ancestry DNA results on the left here. And what you can see is it's particularly helpful to help me understand, what percentage of my ancestry came from specific regions in Africa. And these are all modern day regions, but So it's the people who were living in these regions hundreds of years ago. But you see, a quarter of my DNA makeup is sourced from people who were living in the region of Nigeria hundreds of years ago. And then you also see I descend from the people of Mali, Benin and Togo, and Cameroon. So that's a little bit about what you're going to achieve with this autosomal DNA test. Now I want to move to the second flavor of DNA test, and it's called an mtDNA test. And so this helps you to trace your direct maternal ancestry. So your mother's mother, all the way back into your ancient roots. And so men and women can take this test because they're testing the mitochondrial DNA within you, which is passed down from your mother to you. And then the final test type is called Y-DNA testing. And so this allows you to trace your direct paternal ancestry, so your father's 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 father, all the way back to your ancient direct paternal ancestry. And so this DNA test is only available to people who are born as biological males because it is testing and analyzing the markers found in the Y chromosome, which only biological males are born with. So that's a little bit about DNA testing. And so now I want to talk about leveraging those DNA testing results to start to trace your African ancestry. So on the left, you see the estimate of all of the places where my African ancestors came from, according to my Ancestry DNA results, which I shared with you on the previous page. And now, if you go from that and you look on this chart on the right, you are looking at the major African regions contributing to the transatlantic slave trade in the 17th and 18th centuries, according to Dr. Audrey Brown of the U.S. National Park Service. And so when I correlate this map on the left, which is my own genetic makeup, to the one on the right, I'm able to estimate where specifically my ancestors came from, particularly from the slave trading regions of West Central Africa, of Benin, and of the Gold Coast. And so this work of tracing the ancestries of people of African descent through the approach that I just outlined, this is the work that Black Ancestries does every day. And so our mission is to really help people of African descent to uncover, celebrate, and preserve their family history. And then our vision is to be the trusted leader in African diasporic genealogy. And that vision is formed by my own personal story and experience. I'm African American, but my wife is from Haiti. And so we are a blended household. And so our children are both ancestries. And so we aim to be the trusted place for families like ours, who come from anywhere in the diaspora, whether their roots are in Canada or the United States or the Caribbean or South America, and to know that they can come and know that we have the experience and the cultural context and the skill to uncover and unlock our powerful family histories. And so now I want to share a case study of what's possible to be uncovered through the research approach that I just shared previously, that four-step research. And so I chose this particular case study because I think it powerfully demonstrates something that many people believe is not possible. Tracing one's African-descended family across Canada, across the Caribbean, across colonial America, through enslavement, through emancipation, through military service, and all the way through to the U.S. civil rights movement. And so I'm so excited to introduce to you one of my clients. His name is Amani Moody, and we were actually classmates at Morehouse College, which is an all-male, all-Black liberal arts college in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And so Imani has enjoyed a terrific career since we graduated. He's an accomplished finance leader, and he's also a champion for social justice and equality. And he wanted to know where he got that from. And so specifically, his question to me was, can you uncover the origins and the history of my Moody family across Canada, across the Caribbean, and then the United States. And so I'll give you the answer up front. The answer is yes. And I'll share a little bit with you about what we were able to uncover. So this story will start it in Canada with the Moody's of New Brunswick. And so we were able to trace Imani's direct paternal ancestry back to his great great grandfather, a man named Howard Moody, who was born around 1852, and his great great grandmother named Ada. And so his great great grandfather, Howard, worked as a hostler, which is basically a man who works with horses, in a place called Woodstock in New Brunswick, Canada. And so Woodstock was the home to a rich and thriving Black Canadian community, and it was strengthened by a migration from York County in anywhere between the 1860s and the 1880s. And so by 1893, this community had supported many things, including establishing an AME church, an African Methodist Episcopal church there in Woodstock. And so Black settlement into Woodstock, into New Brunswick, stemmed from two different migration waves. One wave were a wave of Black loyalists from the United States who, during the American Revolution, sided with the British. And so at the end of the war, the British had lost. They up and moved to Canada around 1784 and beyond. And then the second migration wave was as a result of the War of 1812. There were a number of refugees, Black refugees from that war, who immigrated into Canada around a few years after the war, around 18. And so most Black loyalists from the United States actually settled in Nova Scotia, but there were smaller communities that formed along the St. John River in Woodstock. So that's a little bit of what we were able to uncover on Imani's Canadian history, and ultimately his Moody ancestors would move into the United States, into Maine, and also into New England. The Howell family of St. Croix, roots in the Danish West Indies. We were also able to trace back to Imani's third great grandparents, a man named Sidney Howell, born around 1804, and a woman named Lucy Roberts. And so they were enslaved in St. Croix on Hams Bay Estate. And so you're looking at their marriage record. So St. Croix actually recorded the marriages. This is a church record. They recorded the marriages of enslaved people there. And so they were married on August 8th, 1841 at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Frederickstad in St. Croix. And so Frederickstad was one of the island's two principal towns. The other was Christiansted. Emancipation by resistance. So delayed reform in the Danish West Indies, and then also failed emancipation hopes after Denmark's 1848 March Revolution fueled a lot of unrest in St. Croix. And the unrest was also influenced by the Haitian Revolution starting in 1791 with independence achieved in 1804, and then also Martinique pushed for independence in 1848. So on July 3rd, 1848, there were about 8,000 African descended people who were enslaved in St. Croix who launched an uprising. And it was anchored in Frederickstad, St. Croix. And so the revolt, when they started it, was actually signaled by bells, and then also the calls of conch shells across the west end of the island, including Hams Bay Estate, where Imani's ancestors. And so this resistance movement was led by a man named John Moses Badeau Gottlieb. And so the rebels that he led seized the fort in St. Croix and forced the governor to abolish slavery in that year. And so Amani's ancestors, Sidney and Lucy Howe, who were then in their 40s, were among those who freed themselves, along with their daughter, Cordelia, who was born 12 days after St. Croix's emancipation. She would eventually immigrate to the United States and to Maine. And then now let's move to the United States. My Negro servant named Peter. So Amani's sixth great grandfather was a man named Peter Freeman. And as I just referenced, he was described as my Negro servant named Peter when Captain Thomas Stansfield bequeathed him to his wife, Hannah, in Ipswich, Essex County, Massachusetts, in a will dated the 10th of January, 1739. And so you are looking at that will document. And so what I'll say is that most Black people cannot trace back to their sixth great grandparent. And so we were ecstatic to be able to do this and introduce Imani to his sixth great grandfather, and then also give him an opportunity to see his sixth great grandfather documented in records as an enslaved person. And I've done a lot of this type of research, and it's difficult. I go through the same cycle of emotion every time I see one of my ancestors or one of my clients' ancestors documented as property in the historical record. It's a feeling of a cycle of anger feelings, and then sadness. And I have to give myself the space and time to process what I'm looking at. But over time, that anger and that sadness ultimately grows into inspiration, that I am inspired that my ancestors or the ancestors of my clients had the strength and the agency to endure what they did, to build a legacy that now extends to me, to us, the diaspora. And I'm proud to be part of that legacy. A Black patriot, John Freeman. And so Freeman's son, John Freeman, who is my client Imani's fifth great grandfather, actually served in the American Revolutionary War. So on the 11th of August in 1832, while he was living in Maine, he applied for a Revolutionary War pension. And so that pension document application is why we know that he served in the Revolutionary War. And so John Freeman testified that he first enlisted in the Ipswich, Massachusetts militia. They marched to Rhode Island under Captain Prince, where he and his fellow troops guarded the coast. And then they later served in Providence, Rhode Island under his until his 6-month term ended. Then he re-enlisted under Captain Dodge. They marched to Prospect Hill, where he guarded prisoners from Bergen's army until his 3-month discharge. So, and then Peter Freeman actually testified it on his own behalf, and that strengthens the family's documented connection. And so where does all of this lead to about helping Imani learn more about who he is and the freedom of the struggle that's inherited in his blood, his passion for freedom fighting and justice and equality? Well, I can look at it this way. On the one hand, on the left here, in 1777, we know that Imani's fifth great grandfather, the Black patriot John Freeman, risked his life fighting for America's independence for the purpose of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Fast forward 184 years later, John Freeman's fourth great grandson, Imani's father, John P. Moody Jr., risked his very own life as a freedom rider in the segregated South, demanding that America finally live up to that promise that traced all the way back to John Freeman of liberty and equality for all. And so at this point, when I share these stories with people, they say, that's pretty amazing. But I also want to know, can we trace back to our ancestry back to Africa. And so the honest answer is that's very hard, but sometimes it can be achieved. And so here's what I'll summarize what we know based on what I just shared. There are records available to help us trace our ancestry, but records often hit limits. DNA can help. You see me tracing back through DNA to my regions of ancestral origins across the continent of Africa. So sometimes that helps. Occasionally you'll have documented evidence that survives, but rarely do all of these elements survive in a way that allows you to connect the dots to trace back to a named African ancestor. But when those dots do connect, something extraordinary happens. And so let me share one example, a dream fulfilled. I think I mentioned at the beginning of my talk that after seeing Alex Haley's Roots on TV, it left me with a dream that one day I might be able to trace back and call the names of.
Dr. Kearns, can you hear me? Can anyone online hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you, Dr. McClurkin. We seem to lose Dr. Kearns. Okay, in the meantime, while we work out the technicalities with Dr. Kearns, can we perhaps engage a little bit in about what we've heard so far? How is everyone feeling about what they've heard about the presentation in regards to tracing your own DNA and ancestry and the importance of it? Would anyone like to engage with that? I have someone in the audience. Okay. Oh, perhaps, yes. Well, are you able to swing your camera for me? Okay, great. Who would like to ask something or comment? Come on up. Don't be shy. Come on, baby. Come on. You have to come to the microphone so that we can all see and hear you. Wonderful. This is our lovely BB. All right. You have a question?
Well, it's just a comment I have. The African diaspora is large, and it cuts across continents. And I think having a session like this to speak about how these connections can actually grow us in ways we have not yet imagined is very, very important. Something I got from the presentation was like, well, everybody can say, well, I'm already Jamaican. I have an identity. I'm Black American. I have an identity already. But why the need to trace the roots right back to the beginning, to the history? Why the need for that connection? And it got me really thinking deep. We've been scattered, but we can come back. And I think it's a decision we take, that ownership of knowing who you are and reconnecting. I think it will do something very great, like to your spirit, because I know how I was already feeling on that seat, and just imagining all the seeds, from everywhere unifying, and the force, the strength, the connections that's going to be able to create, with everyone bringing their own unique identity from across all the different areas that we've been to, and bringing it together to form this formidable force. So I look forward and I encourage everyone. I think this is amazing, an amazing thing to do. And yes, thank you, Dr. Kearns.
I'm so sorry about that.
All right. Thank you so much, BB. Dr. Kearns, glad you are back. We just had an audience member, making comment about what you've presented so far. We're very much enthused. So please do continue.
Okay, thank you. Yes, actually, I'll say that was planned on purpose to build the suspense. Just kidding. So I think I was talking about a dream fulfilled, that through my research over the course of 20 years, I was able to realize my dream and trace back my own family back to named ancestors born on the continent of Africa. And so I want to share a little bit about that. So here's a summary of what I learned about my Kumbo family through that 20-year research journey. So my Kumbo ancestors were among the very first Africans arriving in Virginia in the United States prior to 1630. And so they, as I said, they arrived to Virginia from the kingdom of Ndongo, which is in modern day Angola. And the name Kumbo is a unique sounding name, and it has origins in Africa. And so my first generation Kumbo ancestor was born in Virginia, and he became free. And so you're looking at a photo of me standing at the memorial marker for the place where my ancestors arrived in Virginia. Then it was called Port Comfort. Now it's called Fort Monroe. And this is in a place called Hampton, Virginia. And so I, through this research, have been able to document this family across 4 centuries from my original African ancestors extending to me. And so, and I've identified thousands of Kumbo descendants, and all of us share a connection through an original set of African ancestors. So our Kumbo family origins start with a man named Emmanuel and a woman named Joan of Ndongo, as I referenced. And so they are my 11th great grandparents. And so they arrived from Africa to Point Comfort, Virginia on slave ships sometime between 1619 and 1628. And so from Port Comfort, they were bound to landowners in a place called James City County, Virginia. And so I've done extensive research on the land patents in James City County, and I've been able to locate both Emmanuel and Joan there, and they're tied to a landowner named William Davis. Emmanuel Kumbo, Negro. So Emmanuel Kumbo, my 10th great-grandfather, was born around 1634 to Emmanuel the Elder and Joan in James City County. And so in 1644, the Virginia legislature ruled him no slave, but an indentured servant. And he was ordered to serve 21 years as an indentured servant, and then he could be free. So by September of 1665, he's freed after 21 years of bondage. And from this point forward, he and his descendants lived as free Black people in America. And so on the 18th of April, 1667, 2 years after achieving his freedom, he takes ownership of 50 acres of land in James City County, Virginia, where his mother and father had labored. And you are looking at the 1667 land grant that confirms 50 acres to my ancestor, Emmanuel Kumbo, Negro. Kumbo family reunion. So here's a photo from our Kumbo family reunion about 10 years ago, which I helped to organize. And I will just tell you, it was absolutely amazing to have the opportunity to meet so many of my Kumbo family members, which I'd connected with through my genealogy research, through my DNA test matches. And so we hosted this family reunion in a place called Williamsburg, Virginia, which is just a few miles from James City County, where our ancestor, our original ancestor, Emmanuel Kumbo, was one of the very few African American landowners in all of Virginia at that time. And so as I start to close this talk and we move into the panel, I want to talk about a global movement we're living in. It's really a global reconnection movement, a reconnection for us as the diaspora to our African roots. And so there's, here are the dots that I see that are connecting. There's growing interest in ancestry tracing. Many people across the African diaspora are now using genealogy, DNA testing, oral history, archival research, all these strategies that I shared with you all to better understand where they come from. Some people are like me and they want to They want to do the research themselves. They want to gather the ingredients and cook the meal. But many others just want to know their family history, and so they hire companies like mine. They say, I don't want to gather the ingredients and cook the meal. I just want to sit down at the table and enjoy the meal. And so that's what we're able to provide them. So there's that growing interest in ancestry tracing. There's also growing interest in reconnecting with Africa. I guess it's a growing interest. It's always been there, tracing all the way back to Alex Haley and roots and before that. But beyond discovering our origins, we have this hunger, and we're seeking cultural, educational, and personal connections, deeper connections to the continent and to our ancestry ties to the continent. Ghana's Year of Return. So Ghana has really done an incredible job, I think, defining a model and sparking a global conversation around reconnection, belonging, homecoming, really embracing the diaspora and encouraging them to come to Ghana. And then that leads me to my next point, citizenship and right of return initiatives. And so I'm presuming these are many of the themes that we'll cover in the panel, but we see countries like Ghana and also Benin creating these pathways for children of the diaspora to return to Africa and to reclaim formal ties to their ancestral homelands. Heritage tourism. Travel continues to increase. Heritage travel, hundreds of millions of dollars in heritage travel, and it gives the diaspora a way to experience history, visit ancestral places, and really deepen their cultural understanding. And then finally, diaspora engagement and investment. So reconnection is not just about reconnecting with our past and where our ancestors came from. It's setting the table to create the opportunity to build future relationships, institutions, businesses, and creating cultural exchange across our powerful diaspora. So why does all this matter? I would boil it down to this. Every family possesses a powerful and inspirational family history and powerful and inspirational family stories that we can tap into. There's stories of resilience. There's stories of sacrifice. There's stories of deep love and of family. There's stories of achievement despite facing significant challenge. And there are stories that deserve to be remembered. Our ancestors deserve to be remembered. And we have the opportunity to uncover their stories, share them forward so that they are part of our collective memory moving forward. And so as I close things out, I want to close with a call to action, 3 calls to action. One is make it a task to ask one elder in your family a question about your family's history this month. That's number 1. Number 2, take steps to build your family tree. Again, you can start by just writing it down on using a pen and paper, or you can sign up for Ancestry.com or use software, but start to build a family tree. And then the third step would be just take the first step. I've shared a lot with you, and this is a lot that I've accomplished over many years, but the only way I was able to accomplish it was to take one step at a time. And so don't think about all that you want to accomplish. Just think about the first step you're going to take to learn a little bit more about your family history, and the rest will follow. And so with that, I want to say thank you. And here's my information. And again, it's been an honor to share these thoughts with you. And I look forward to flowing into the next part of this program and into the panel discussion.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Kearns. That was beautiful. We are grateful to have you join us here today and to present us with some technical support, so to speak, in terms of how to go about doing this. And so before we dive right in, I do want to take an opportunity to introduce some additional panelists that we do have online. I do understand that a couple of our people are delayed for various reasons, but I do want to recognize that Dr. McClurkin, who is a scientist and genetics and ethics individual, he is online, and I do want to take an opportunity to ask him to go ahead, do a complete introduction of yourself, take a moment, and then give us a little insight as to what you felt about the presentation done by Dr. Kearns and how you see this being a valuable source of information for the Black diaspora. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to be a part of the panel. I'm not a scientist in any sense of the word, but certainly I am one who have engaged in my search for my family history and heritage, and I'm certainly one who has been in the forefront of advocating for citizenship rights for those of us in the diaspora who can identify where our ancestral roots are. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Kearns for that outstanding presentation. I mean, you have been a very astute researcher, and so you certainly have inspired me, and I hope others in this group to want to go as deep as you've been able to go. And hopefully that you will serve as a resource for people who want to be able to go deeper. I mean, the work that I've been able to do doesn't match what you've been able to do. But I have been involved in, and I'm involved right now in an initiative in Nigeria. We are in the second reading of the passage of a law that would allow persons who can identify any ancestral connection to Nigeria as being where their major ancestral linkage goes back to, as being able to have rights of citizenship, provided they want to come back, live, work, and invest back into the country and give back to the country. So I think, doing that kind of research is going to be very important. As you mentioned, there are a lot of movements afoot, and they will continue to grow and expand across Africa. And the other part of it is that, according to international law, if you are kidnapped from your ancestral lands, you do not, and taken to a foreign land, you don't lose your ancestral right. So even though we are descendants of people who were kidnapped and taken abroad, our ancestral connections to those lands where they were taken from legally remains. And we certainly have a legal claim to returning to those lands and restoring our kinship. What I say often, and I'll conclude with this, what I say often when I'm in Nigeria talking, making speeches, and I spend a lot of time in Ghana, I spend time in Benin and Sierra Leone and Togo and South Africa, Zimbabwe. So I've spent significant amount of time in Africa, lived in South Africa for a year. What I always say is this: even though, and I trace my ancestry predominantly back to Nigeria, even though, I am generations removed from those ancestors who walked the shores of Nigeria, somewhere there is a relative. There are relatives who are still in that land and who are still in the lands where my ancestors walked. Somewhere there is some ancestral rights. It could have been land. We don't know. I mean, there are still connections. There are still family connections. There are still land connections that are ours. And we should definitely go back and claim them. We should go back and find our families. It's going to be very important for the development of Africa. that those of us in the diaspora and those who are on the continent reconnect for the good of Africa. And I don't think none of us will reach our full potential, whether we're out here in the Caribbean, in Americas, in Canada, or in Europe, or wherever we are. I don't believe none of us can reach our full potential, and I don't believe the continent can reach its full potential without us reconnecting as we should have. So I'm in very much support of this whole and African Heritage Center and this movement to help people identify their ancestry, and I hope people take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McClurkin. Absolutely, I do believe, the consensus is shared across the board that this is definitely something of importance for all of us. Before we broaden the discussion, I would like to invite our panelists, Ms. Gwyneth Chapman, who is part of the Government Relations and Diaspora Engagement Strategist in the city of Brampton. She works closely with our mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown. And so I'd like to invite her to come and take her place beside me. And while she comes, I'm not sure, Matthew, if you can tell me if Dr. Estelle Collins and Mr. Kenneth Jeffers, if they've joined us just yet. Okay, I do know that they're having some issues, so we'll just bear with me. Ms. Chapman, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's good to have you with us. I'm not sure how much of the conversation you've heard, but I would just like for you to take a moment and tell us what you do in the Brampton diaspora.
Welcome, and thank you for putting on this very important conversation. Happy to be here. So I lead the Black Economic, Social, Cultural, Youth, and Civic Development Unit at the City of Brampton. Also a longtime community volunteer, advocate, mobilizer, and someone who I think I'm probably our biggest fan, or the biggest fan when it comes to our Black community. I'm very proud of who we are, and I often speak in terms of our lineage, our legacy, and I remind everyone, doesn't matter where they come from in terms of the Caribbean, South America, UK, wherever, we all come from the motherland. And it's really important for us to really focus on who we are, our legacy, and I think in understanding our history, we're able to then make some sense in terms of finding out our purpose and where we sit in terms of this new world that's developing. So let me just stop here because sometimes I could kind of go on for quite some time.
No, thank you for that. Thank you. I do feel that passion is definitely required, and you certainly do have that. And thank you for all the work that you continue to do within our fair city of Brampton. Thank you. Okay, so just to kind of move things along, I know a lot of our time has been far spent, but I would like to engage the panel in kind of talking to our audience about the importance of the DNA ancestry, the citizenship, the policy implications, and so on. So I guess we'll do it bit by bit so that you guys can kind of grab it. In terms of policy implications, let's start there. I'm going to ask you, Gwyneth, if you can kind of give us, a little bit of insight into that. If you're not fully comfortable with, maybe answering that question, I can always transition over to someone else. So that's fine. Just you want me to start somewhere else? Okay. All right. Dr. Kearns?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to throw it back to you. So in terms of policy implications, how do you see us tracing our DNA, our ancestry? How do you see this as something that can have impact, whether negatively or positively, in terms of policy. I mean, when we look at certain things like medical testing, being done on our people and things like that, a lot of us are concerned about putting our DNA out there. So how do we protect that?
Yes, that it comes up every time I give a talk. I think I would say the DNA testing movement emerged maybe 10 years ago, and then it grew like crazy. I think the biggest service, Ancestry DNA, has tested over 50 million people worldwide. A number of them are of African descent. And I think it's peaked, and now it's kind of stagnant or a little bit in decline in terms of new people coming on board and testing. But more and more, as I give talks like this, people do ask me, because they've seen in the news cases of law enforcement using DNA and DNA matches to find people, right, to arrest them and to incarcerate them. And then, of course, as African Americans, and I'm sure this is the case for the broader diaspora, there are specific examples in our history of the Tuskegee experiment and other things where the medical establishment has essentially experimented on us at our expense. And so there is a lot of suspicion when people think about spitting in a tube and giving up a little bit of their DNA for purposes of a genealogy. So I'm not here to argue one way or another that you should do it. I think it's a personal decision. But what I can say is that you should make the decision with the full information. And so every DNA test company out there has to, as they operate, they have to provide terms of service and how how they handle your DNA from a privacy perspective, what they're able to do with it and what they're not able to do with it. And so I would just encourage everyone, if you're considering DNA testing, but you need to get comfortable with it, go to those pages for those companies that offer the DNA tests and read their restrictions and how they keep your DNA private. If it's in legal language that's harder for you to understand, like it is for me, drop it in ChatGPT and say, explain this terms of service in very clear terms to me, in plain terms. Get it to a stage where you can understand it and what they're saying, and then decide if you're comfortable with those terms. And if you are, then proceed. And what I shared is that DNA testing can be very helpful in advancing your genealogy and learning to a greater level of detail more about our connections to Africa and specific places in Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Kearns, for your explanation. Yes, I do believe that it is important for us to understand the language that is being used. So be proactive in taking care of your own understanding, right? And making sure that this decision it's a very personal decision to want to go put yourself out there to understand your own ancestral history, right? What would you like to contribute to that?
I think, well, this is a very interesting area of conversation. Right away, because of my background working with Reuben Hurricane Carter on wrongly convictions and my understanding of the challenges that we've had in the United States when it comes to wrongly convictions, kind of a little bit cautious with this type of, with this area. And, I think it's just from my background, I just hesitate when I'm thinking in terms of our DNA or information on who we are is out there, because I know how that could be used in very negative ways, right? So right away, I think I just feel a little bit more anxious, only because of my experience and the thousands and thousands of black men in the United States have been wrongly convicted, and a little bit cautious with regards to this area, but not much that I can share, only that it's something that we really have to tread very closely on, and make sure that we are very educated in what it is, what's around this, what it means, and how that could be used, whether it's for positive or good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that input. And I do see that we have been joined by Mr. Ken Jeffers. And so, sir, I'm going to invite you now to unmute yourself and just join the conversation, introduce who you are, what you do, and then I'll ask you some questions, okay?
Sure. You hear, I'm unmuted, I think. I'm in my car. Unfortunately and tragically, I should say that I was unable to get there. There was an accident, and I won't go into my details. However, just in hearing, Sister Gwen and hearing the discussion, I would just first of all say that, we have every reason to be reluctant and suspicious of providing information, as was just mentioned about, the Tuskegee Institute, etc. But I will say, though, that we have never really controlled the means of communication. And again, my suspicion on all of this is based on the fact that we are not involved, for example, with AI. It's a way of getting information. We don't understand. We are not involved in owning any major part of the AI communication. And whoever is able to communicate, that they have done with us in the past, when I say they have told us who we are, who we are not, etc., etc. And I'm very conscious of that. And when I speak to some of my colleagues and do some of the workshops, we are talking now about AI. So again, generally speaking, we are systemically, and I say systemically, denied the kind of information that we can verify. And I'm not saying that all of it is like that. It's not an absolute. However, I'm just saying that there are reasons to be suspicious, right? The second thing I'll say, and then I will just end here, is that when we talk about, connecting with our heritage, for me, the basic challenge is that we have not agreed on who we are. And by that I mean, we've heard the whole thing, I am from Jamaica, I am from here, and so on and so forth. So we don't even agree, I'm sorry. We don't agree on who we are and how we are, who defines us. We unfortunately depend too much on that. And so I'll just end by saying that there is a reason for some degree of suspicion, and I think we have to, with the new generation, I say new because everybody's new to me, that they should really try and get involved in the management of AI, so that we can so we can be protected. We, meaning the people of African descent, because we have never really controlled the way of communicating, and so that's what I'd say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you raised a very good point about us having some form of control over, information technology, right? Our young people do need to be more involved in information that is being put out there and how it is used. You being a civil rights activist as well, I'm sure that you can appreciate the challenges of DNA. And so I thank you for your points that you have made. In that saying, I want to go kind of pivot a little bit, because I know Dr. McClurkin spoke about citizenship pathways, and I want to touch on that because there has been a movement. And before I ask Dr. McClurkin to unmute, I've been noticing a lot
I believe
of.
he had to leave.
Oh,
I
did
don't see
he?
him. I don't see him on the chat any longer.
Oh, okay. Well, no, nonetheless, I would like to encourage us all to be able to kind of speak on this a little bit, because I've been seeing a lot lately about Black Americans specifically talking about the fact that not all Black Americans are from the diaspora or are part of the African fabric, right? And so they believe that they are indigenous to America. And me being who I am and having a brain that says the world from the dawn of time has been migrating. Migration is in everyone's DNA. So I want to know, how would you address something like that? Dr. Kearns, I'll give it to you first.
Can you ask the question again? Is it that there are people who believe that people of the diaspora, that we're not descendants of people who lived in Africa?
No. So the question is, so there's Black Americans who feel that they are indigenous to America and that they did not, or their family history is not a part of the slave fabric, or that they did not migrate from Africa. So how would you address something like that? Like what would you say to someone who believes that?
Well, I think that in our social media world and in this AI world, there's a lot of deep fakes. There's lots of information, misinformation that floats around, and people latch on to things. But to me, based on everything I've learned in my life and studied, there is a documented history of the transatlantic slave trade, of millions of our ancestors being captured and as captives being shipped to the Americas and enslaved. And then there's that. And then in terms of genealogy, you just saw all the receipts that I shared in terms of our ancestors being enslaved and the ability to research those documents and trace to them and better understand the lives that they lived. You also saw the DNA results that I shared, and all the different parts of the continent of West Africa and Central Africa from where I descend through my ancestors, and how that very tightly maps to the regions of the transatlantic, slave trade where they sourced our ancestors from. And so all of those data points to me say that African Americans whose families have been here for many, many, many generations, that there's history there that says that our African ancestry is tied to our ancestors coming through the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may just
Yes,
I
please.
just ask a question based on some of the comments here. What do we see as the motivating factors that that people of African descent will willingly and proudly associate themselves with Africa? Why do we think, or why is there such a reluctance? And I think if we understand that, then we will, be in a much better position to provide people motivation or inspire people to say, yeah, I want to know more about my African heritage. But there is always a denial. In the Caribbean, for example, that I mentioned earlier on, people say, I'm not an African, I'm a Jamaican, I am from the United States, and that sort of thing, right? So what do you think? What do you think are the reasons? What are the reasons that, as you would see, for people who deny or want to distance themselves from, I am not African, I am this and I am that? They don't want to define themselves. What do you think? Or could you just respond to that, if you don't mind?
Oh, that's a great question. Dr.
I mean,
Kearns, you want to start? Yeah?
Oh,
Go ahead.
me? Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
No, yes, you can go ahead. I do have some in studio comments, and I'm going to take those in a moment. But I'll let you jump on and kind of lead on with that
Okay.
question.
I think that for me, the way that I grew up in a house where my parents introduced me to the history of Africa, the glorious history of Africa. And so from as long as I can remember, I've always been aware of that history and proud of that I descend from it, and understanding the kingdoms and the accomplishments in the history that come from the continent, and that civilization comes from the continent, and humanity itself. And then, but I can see that maybe there are people who didn't grow up that way, who didn't, maybe they don't know anything about the history of Africa. And so maybe that leads to say there is no proud African history. And so if you're not aware of it, if you don't think it exists, then you're saying, oh, I don't want to associate myself with that. The other piece of it is, I would say, for those people, maybe they're thinking that history starts with enslavement, and that is something that they're not proud of, or it's not a history to be proud of. And certainly it is a difficult history that our ancestors had to live through. It is shameful history of what was put upon our ancestors with enslavement. But that was not our ancestors. I get inspired by the strength of our ancestors to endure what they did, and to, despite their circumstances, to establish legacies that now extend to each of us who are on this Zoom or at the African Heritage Center as part of this conversation. And so I really focus on the strength and the agency of my ancestors to live through what they lived through, as opposed to being focused on the circumstance that they didn't have any control over.
That's a great response, and we thank you.
Okay.
We thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to encourage the audience that is online to please, if you do have a question, a comment, any form of reaction, just please raise your hand, and we will definitely take your questions and acknowledge you. Anyone in studio that has a comment for me? You do? I like that.
Sure, thanks. You could come after. So I'm just curious to find out. This is a question for you, Dr. Kearns. Just curious about how the reception, since, I'm not sure how long ago the idea of being able to trace your ancestry has been around. 2000s? Early 2000s? So just wondering, what, from the conversations that you've had, how are people receiving it? Is there more interest in this, or do you find that it's kind of dying down?
There's growing interest. So I would say that interest in tracing your roots, I would trace it back to Alex Haley and the Roots saga from the 1970s. Is really, he inspired millions of Americans, African Americans, to work to trace their roots or want to trace their roots. So I think that's where it started. Certainly in my lifetime, that's what I remember. And then the early 2000s is more when you have the emergence of the DNA technology that you add to your ability to research your ancestry. Then I think another factor is in the United States, there's a public historian. His name is Henry Louis Gates, and he's affiliated with Harvard University, and he has a TV program called Finding Your Roots, which is wildly popular and really has introduced the power of kind of learning your ancestry and your family story and connecting your past with your present to, again, millions of people in this new generation. So I think all of those factors, all tracing back to Alex Haley, with the advent of DNA, with the advent of so many records now being so much more accessible. Millions of records in the United States have been digitized and made available online and easily searchable. So you can, it used to be 30 years ago to research census records or certain vital records. You had to go to the town where your ancestor was from and go to the courthouse or go to the registrar and ask to see those documents and the actual paper documents. Now it's all online, and so all you need is an internet connection, and you have access to these millions of records. And then you've got these companies like Ancestry that really are built around making it as easy as possible for you to research your family history as they can. And so all these factors have led to, I think, really healthy growth in interest in people doing this. But again, the other piece of it I would say is that most people are interested in knowing their family history, but few people are interested in actually researching it, right? And so that really was the insight upon which I built my company. I said most African Americans want to know their history, but they're not like me, and they will spend 20 years meticulously researching it. But they might be willing to hire someone to do it for them and then come back and get on a Zoom and present the full story back to them. So I think that the industry is booming and still continues to grow. But that's my interpretation of where we're headed and why I created what I created.
Thank you. And I do have someone here with me who would like to ask a question. Oh, you wanted a follow-up. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Again, wondering how this affects young people. And I wonder if there's any stats or if there's a way to find out whether they are interested in finding the ancestry. And I think because of what we face as Black people in Canada and the US, we somehow have a real struggle when it comes to identity and self-confidence. And I do believe, and I say with my work and both in the city of Brampton and just in general, I think building our confidence and building the confidence in our young people is extremely important, because we always have to be thinking about the future, not so much what's happening now, but we have to be strategic and we have to plan and figure out what we need to do now to make sure and ensure that we have a generation of Black, confident young people, young leaders who are going to be able to face this society and still continue to work to rise above, and to fulfill their God-given purpose. So I have a deep concern about young people. And with all the conversations that are going around, which is very important, I think we have to focus on what we can do with the platforms, the information, the experience, and the expertise that we have to ensure that whatever we do, we are involving, we are including, and we are empowering our young people so that they can build their confidence and continue to be the giants that they were born to be.
I think that's well said.
Thank
I think
you.
earlier in my talk, I posed the question that Mr. Jeffers posed to me when we had our prep session for this: why trace your roots? And one of the things I said was, knowing our story changes how we see ourselves. So I do firmly believe if young people better know their family story, the abolitionists, the veterans, the educators, the entrepreneurs, the fighters in their family, that strengthens their confidence and their identity, knowing that they came from that and that they are part of that legacy, and that legacy flows through them. And so I do think young people will benefit from that in terms of strengthening their identity and their roots. And I do think that young people are interested in that. I mean, you see young people taking DNA tests, certainly, maybe not as much doing the genealogy work, but there's an opportunity to do sessions like this to educate people on how you can use those tools to learn more about your family history, so that, again, that can strengthen your understanding of yourself and who you come from.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Thank you for touching on that. And this will probably be my last comment in this area. But I'm just wondering what we can do to make sure, or at least to have some way to get this into the schools for the young people who need it. We have to find a way to make this get into schools. So I represent Brampton, but I represent Black Canadians, period. And I consider myself a big advocate and voice for young people, because in as much as we try to do what we can do as adults, we're forgetting that the village, we're really not there for our young people. And they are facing quite a bit of challenge, of a challenge in schools and in society, period. So whatever we can do to support, to empower them, I think we really have to take that seriously. And I am actually working on a national conference to pull everyone who's interested in the well-being and the development of our Black youth, to make sure that we strategically come forth and put some ideas that are going to be practical and that would make sense. The focus, again, is to build confidence, to make sure that our young people have a sense of belonging, and to make sure that they understand that they come from a legacy of greatness, so it's in their DNA. And I'll pass it over to you now.
Thank you. I like that. That, to me, makes a lot of sense in terms of, realizing our future, right? Our young people naturally is our key to going forward. Now, before I take your comment, I want to say one thing. Dr. Kearns, you mentioned, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm having a brain fog moment, but you did respond to Ms. Chapman's question, and you talked about having an international or a national convention, right? I'm thinking, okay, in order to get this into the schools and so on, we're looking at cost. And I was going to talk to you about cost, just on an individual basis. So to get it into the schools, what would that look like? Okay, and I want you to take a moment and think about that and then respond. And then right after you respond, I'm going to have our young audience member here contribute to the conversation. Okay, and then I'm heading over to another individual. So take it away. Dr. Kearns, go ahead.
You want me to respond to how to get this into schools?
How to get it into schools and the cost for individuals. So if I wanted to trace my DNA, what's the cost that I would be looking at? Is it economically feasible for the average individual, right? Because we know with our diaspora, like, finance is always a challenge for us. So we as much as we want to do it, sometimes we can't. And then how would we get it into the schools?
I'm not an educational specialist, but I mean, the things that come to mind are there's history and then there's genealogy, right? History is kind of looking from the top down at the narrative of a country or a region of the world through the lens of key events and key people. Genealogy is looking at being able to see history through the lens of your individual and specific family. So I think there's an opportunity for us to continue to push for, and there's been pushback on this in the United States, but a more holistic teaching of history. We're in the United States, we're commemorating it's called America 250, so it ties back to the Declaration of Independence and the founding of the country in 1776. And so what I would say is it would be a mistake for children to learn about the founding of the country purely through that narrow lens of the Revolutionary War and the founding, quote unquote, founding fathers of the country solely. You have to broaden your lens, and we have to think about the pre-founding of the country and all of the Africans who were held captive and enslaved, who labored in plantations and provided labor against their will to create the economic prosperity that allowed the founding fathers to pursue independence. I mean, George Washington had the father of the country had a plantation called Mount Vernon in Virginia, which he was rarely there, but it was a thriving plantation because of all the people he enslaved that were working to make it a thriving plantation. That allowed him to go off to pursue independence for the country. So we need to recognize the contributions of those people, and that we need to teach that in our history to lay the groundwork for U.S. independence. And then within independence, young people need to know that the first martyr of the American Revolution was a man named Crispus Attucks, who was of Black and Indigenous descent, and that thousands of Black men and women served and supported the revolutionary cause. And then, so that's then the founding, and then we get the refounding. In 1865, at the end of the Civil War, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment fundamentally redefined what citizenship means in the United States. And so African Americans in this emancipation period are reshaping the culture and our institutions and our history, the creation of historically Black colleges and universities, of freedmen's schools, of churches, the Black church as an institution born of this era. And so history needs to be taught in this more holistic way so that young people understand this broader view of our shared history. That needs to be our collective memory. And so I think that that is about making sure that the curriculum in our schools reflects that. And then in terms of genealogy, I think there's innovative ways that we can introduce genealogy into schools, whether it's after school programs or even integrated into history. Wouldn't it be cool if young people could learn about history not from a textbook, but through the lens of their very own ancestors? Wouldn't that be more powerful for them to understand some of the eras of history through the lens of how their ancestors experienced it? So those are my thoughts on getting this into schools. And then in terms of cost of genealogy, a DNA test kit from Ancestry is under $100. So anywhere between $50 and $100, depending on what promotions and specials there are. So it's a reasonable price. And then in terms of doing all that documents research, there's Ancestry is a paid service, so you pay about $100 a year to have access to these records. But there are other services out there that are free. One is called FamilySearch.org, and it has many of the same records that are available in Ancestry. They make them available to users for free. And so you just need to be able to get on the internet and register for FamilySearch.org. Once you've registered, you have access to all those documents to enable your research. So the cost on the individual level for people who are interested can be pretty minimal to get started.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kearns. Thank you for that response. And we have a young lady who would like to make a comment. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. I think I'm one person that is so different from everybody here because I don't live in Canada. I don't live in the United States. I live in Nigeria. So I'm here on a visit, and we just finished a conference on African Studies just last week at York University Glendon campus. So I remember that Professor Paul Lovejoy made a presentation. He was one of the keynote speakers, and he made a presentation on the significance of tracing the genealogy and back to the roots in Africa, and he used the example of Olaude Equiano. So when I saw the advert, actually I got it from my friend, Dr. Mary. She posted it and I was like, oh, since I'm in Canada, I just have to come. And she was like, okay, register. So I registered and that's why I'm here. So the discussion has been interesting, but where I wanted to start was where she bailed me out. I think she made it easier for me by asking, what are all of these for the young people? Because I was just telling her that when you talk about this tracing, maybe Dr. Keynes was interested in doing that, but what about the younger people? Would they be so much interested in doing that? What is there for them, and what implications? Because she mentioned it, the implications of doing so, as well as putting it side by side with the advantages, because those are the things the young people, that's how they think. They just want to know what's there for them before, yes. So it's interesting. Like I looked at the picture Dr. Keynes shared of the homecoming, the family reunion, very interesting. But I feel that by the time that the narrative may not just be the same. When we continue to trace, I don't know how many examples or how many successful stories or narratives that he has when it comes to tracing genealogy back to even Africa. I would maybe I can also engage him later, because we would like to see also like a comparison. How the comparison, the challenges, the success stories, because I know, I'm just imagining, 2-3 years ago, there was a story like that. Somebody in tracing the genealogy came back to Nigeria, and I don't think at the end of the day, it was such a glorious outcome, tracing that. So, as fascinating as it is, just like I saw in the presentation of Professor Paul Lovejoy, how he was able to connect and trace Olaude Equiano's generation back to Equiano, somewhere in Abia State, and this impact of that across connecting some of the cultural implications to other regions, other parts in Nigeria, southeastern Nigeria. So, just like I've said, I don't know, I'm just looking at, like I said, I was just looking at all of these, and then questioning, asking some questions, which also the panelists have looked at or have answered, like the cost implication and the impact on youth and the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. That was well-rounded, and it's quite obvious you were paying attention, so I thank you. I do have one more comment, and then I will introduce Dr. Estelle Collins. He is with us finally. We thank you for joining us. We understand you had some difficulties, but I do want to pull one more audience member, and just a quick comment. We do have to be mindful of time at this point, okay?
Thank you. My name is Rooks Tokpe Ako. I work with young people. I started a program with the African Union Commission, Youth for Peace Africa, so I'm also coming from a youth angle. And when you ask the question, how do you get young people interested in their heritage? It's right before us. The first thing that takes away your culture, your heritage, is your literature, your fashion, your storytelling, your folklores. And that's the way to get back to young people. I mean, if you look across the continent, go to places where there's absolutely little or no culture in that sense. And I'm talking here, Kenya, for example, other than the Maasais. They don't have any cultural attire or names. They bear English names, all right? In those places, what you see today is fashion from Nigeria, fashion from Ghana, taking over, and it's the world stage as well. So when we ask the question, how do we bring young people? That's one of the ways, and it's right before us. Music. Music. We have what the international community is categorizing as Afrobeats. Okay? I mean, people would argue that's not a thing. Hello? Okay, so I can go on. So for me, these are some of the ways that young people are able to connect with, heritage, history, and they want to engage. They want to engage. Young creatives are coming back to the continent. Young entertainers are coming back and doing collaborations. And these are what young people want to identify with. Very briefly, I worked for a few years with the African Union Commission. And I'm trying here to say, how can we link bottom-up, top-down? Within the African Union Commission, there's recognition given to 6 regions. So North, South, West, East, Central Africa. But they also recognize the 6th one, the diaspora. And they have an entire directorate, CIDO, that's what it's called. It's Citizens in Diaspora and Organizations, I think. And I think when you are able to connect that bottom-up approach, literature, creatives, and the policy top-down, we'll find that middle ground, and then each and every one of us can find where we fit and how we can make those connections to make progress in this regard.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Dr. Estelle now joins us, and I would like to have him introduce himself. Oh, I'm sorry, this one's yours. I do apologize. Dr. Estelle, if you would please unmute yourself and just give us a little insight as to what you do, who you are, and your experience, and then we'll dive in. Okay?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you. Go
Hi,
ahead.
thank you. I must say I'm quite honored and privileged to actually be a part of this very important meeting. Forgive me for being late. Yes, I live in Guyana, but I visited South Africa, Ghana, as well as Nigeria. So there's always been a passion of mine. I was a part of CARICOM, the Caribbean community. But to speak to this topic, I believe it's not only necessary, but it's absolutely necessary. And they have to be, I believe, there's some amount of leadership required in terms of, because they are pockets of interest in terms of who we are. And until I traveled to the continent, there was very little known. And because I have not had the benefit of being a part of what was discussed previously, I would just like for you to just bring me up to speed, so to speak, because I really just came on. But about me, I did a lot of leadership development, especially with the youth in schools throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. And the young people are engaged, they are willing to be a part of, but I think we need to employ a degree of leadership that draws them to a specific goal and a specific purpose. I'm not sure what I missed, where we are with the conversation, where we are in the discussion.
No,
but,
that's fine. That
please
is
bring me
fine.
up to date.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions or comments in the audience as well as online? If anyone has anything to say, just please raise your hands online. That would be great. Ken Jeffers, would you like to say something else in contribution? Oh, you're still muted, sir. Okay, just one moment. If Matthew, if you could please unmute Mr. Ken Jeffers. And in the meantime, I just want to thank each and every one of you for participating thus far, for being a part of our audience as well as our panelists. This has definitely been an engaging topic, and I do feel that the value that we get from tracing our heritage, our ancestry, is more important than we realize. Yes, you know, there's that concern about protecting our DNA, having that, you know, online, but we also have to look at where we're coming from so we can have an idea as to where we're going. How do we get to where we need to go as a people? Right? A lot of us, we talked about the young people feeling somewhat excluded, and but it's not just them. I feel a lot of people from various diasporas, whether it's the Caribbean and or you know parts of Toronto, like or Canada, sorry. People from different backgrounds, we have this feeling of exclusion as well. Like we need to feel as though we are one body with many members, right? That's how we're going to be able to function. We have to see ourselves as not being able to go forward unless, you know, all of the ligaments in the legs are working. And the work can't be done unless all the arms are working. And the arms can't work until the brain is fully functioning, right? So we have to start thinking in that manner that we are one set of people and we have to work together, bringing our heritage, our different cultures, bringing all of that together. And it is with that that I want to pivot a little bit, because we're here for a specific reason, and that is the African Heritage Center. And the purpose behind the African Heritage Center, which I'm very passionate about, is wanting to build a facility. Okay, we want to build a facility here in Ontario that will be able to do just the thing that we're talking about, which is to empower the young people. Give them something to be proud of, give them a reason to be proud, give them a reason to think of themselves in a more worthwhile way and see themselves doing more than just being a target for society, right? We want so much more for them. And with that, I really want to thank this lady. Oh my gosh, I found her on LinkedIn. I believe this was just last year, like late last year. And she has been such a warmth for our connection. Her name is Professor Elizabeth Fenuta. I do apologize, I'm butchering your name. And she is an architect professor here at the Humber College in Etobicoke in Ontario, Canada. And her and her students have done an amazing job with helping us to actually visualize what that center could look like. And what that center will do is have that innovation where we can trace our ancestry, we can trace our heritage, run our DNA. Imagine having an entire facility dedicated to, well, not the entire facility, but a part of that facility dedicated to tracing our heritage and to teach about who we are, not just as individual cultures, but where we started from and how we as separate cultures can still come together and learn from each other, impact each other, and drive change forward. So with that, I want to introduce Professor Elizabeth Fenuta. Please welcome her. All right.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy that we have this day together. We've been planning this event for quite some time. Actually, the planning did start last fall when Marcia first contacted me. And I was so happy to support this initiative. I think it's amazing. And definitely the amount of engagement that the African Heritage Center has had with our students has made this all the more rich of an education experience. So when we talk about education and we talk about how we engage our students, our youth, this is one of the ways we can do it, and we hope to continue to work with the African Heritage Center moving forward. So we have a lot more planned. So what we focused on for our course, we created a whole course centered around the African Heritage Center and their vision for the center. And our students created a series of projects around the needs for the center. So the first goal for the African Heritage Center was to look at the existing drawings and designs that they had from the Nigerian architect, and to bring them into Ontario and look at our Ontario building codes and how this can actually be realized in our GTA. So we looked at many different sites, and they also picked a fictitious site, I guess, and they looked at how we could bring this up to our Canadian standard and reflect something of a joint heritage from Canada and Africa. So I'm going to introduce my students in a second, and then we also did some fundraising strategies, social media strategies, and also looking at a variety of smaller scale centers that we can have before we can actually build this larger one. So we have Nadia here, who is one of my current students, who has been instrumental, who's been helping with our social media and getting this event started, and I know she'll be continuing to work with us as we move forward into working on more grants and more ways to support. And we have Natalie, who has been the lead for the project. And she's leading her group here with the physical model that they're building, which unfortunately wasn't ready today, but she has images of what it's going to look like and all the amazing renderings, and it's basically all her vision. She was the lead. So I'm going to give it to Natalie now, let her do her spiel. And thank you very much. And
hello. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see your all faces. So yeah, this is basically what we've been working on for the last 4 months in school. We had a variety of different groups, and another thank you to Elizabeth for creating this program. It was a great experience to work with actual clients and learn more about the African Heritage Center and kind of shape what we're using. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so shape the building to your needs and make sure everyone feels included in this building. And so yeah, we can take a look at it. Yeah, so today we're going to start with the concept. Then we'll have our building progress, our plans, sections, and elevations, and landscape and renders. So the concept for this building was design focused on creating warm and a welcoming atmosphere that feels connected to nature. Organic shapes, natural materials, and soft lighting are used to promote comfort, relaxation, and a sense of belonging. We also wanted to look at wood textures, greenery, and earthy tones to help create the calming environment that feels both inviting and culturally grounded. The layout encourages smooth transitions between spaces, allowing guests to feel at ease while maintaining privacy and functionality. Overall, the concept blends with natural elements and thoughtful design and create a space that supports gathering, reflection, and meaningful connections. Yeah, so this is the model render. So this is what we are planning for it to look like. I personally cut all of the AutoCAD files for them to be built, so they're currently being put together by some other students as well. But this will make more sense as we go through the plans and everything. But this is kind of a basic model of what it will look like. So yeah, let's start with the first floor plan for the lodging building. So here we have all of the areas that are going to be included. So we have the reception lobby, service court, exit stairs, restaurants, kitchen, custodial room. We have all your event spaces, and we also made sure everything is up to code. So this is almost like build ready. So we made sure that everything is organized properly. People have privacy in areas that are supposed to be private, and also public areas where there's supposed to be learning and community connection. We ensured that it feels inviting and included as well. So yeah, in our second floor plan, our room legend, we have our lounge area, service cores, we have a restaurant, we also have the outdoor patio as well, and then we have the event hall C and D, and then we also have the women's washrooms and the men's washrooms, and then we also have government services as well, which is more private, and then we have our other outdoor patio as well. And then for the third floor plan, so this is where we start to get into the suites and what they look like. We have our general lounge. So that would be this main area right here where it connects to the Sky Bridge. And then we have our standard room, which is around 1,100 square feet. And then we have our standard room, which is about 400 square feet. And then our standard double bed guest room, about 900 square feet. And then we also have our green roof here, where there is potential to have people walk out onto the roof and also see the weather station that was requested. So yeah, we thought about all of the requests and we tried to incorporate them into the build as well, and lots of greenery. And then we have our fourth floor plan, just some more rooms again. We have the larger suites for people that are going to be staying longer, and then we have the smaller suites for people maybe there just for one night. But again, they were all designed with comfort in mind and inclusivity. And yeah. And then we have our fifth floor plan. So these are the very big, nice rooms. You'll have a beautiful view, depending on the site that you pick, but there is lots of gorgeous areas in the GTA area that you can pick from. So yeah, this is the last floor plan. And then this is the north elevation of the building. So all throughout here, where we have the podium, is all public areas. And above that, we have the rooms. So we separated them to show what is private and what is public, and to show the differences in the colors. And then we have the south elevation. So this is the area where the building connects to the main building, the facilities building. So right there would be the Sky Bridge, and then we have an open staircase, and then we have a covered patio over here, and then the pool on the other side. And then we have our east elevation. As you can see here, we have the pool area with lots of seating. And yeah. And then we have our west elevation as well. So you can see the restaurants up there, and then through here you would have your event hall area. Okay, so this is for the main facilities building. So we have the main area here where you walk in, and it goes all the way up to the top floor, so you can see all the way up. There's room for statues, flags, any art displays that you would want someone to see when they first walk in. We also have our theater that opens to the outside, so it's an indoor-outside kind of area, so you can have in the summer, you can have plays outside. It's also a covered area as well. And then we also have our learning space over here. So this is our library that's designed to promote like inclusivity and making people feel connected. So we tried to use lots of curves, open areas to ensure that people feel connected with each other. And then we also have another dining area with multiple different kitchens to have multiple different restaurants. So you're not limited to that. And yeah, we also have our childcare area here. It's got lots of room, and it's got direct access to a parking lot as well, so it makes it easier for parents. And then we have our, do we have the second floor? Second floor plan. So here we have the basketball courts. We ensured that it was large, and there's enough room to also host events in there as well. And then on 10, we have a beautiful walkout patio. It is massive and is also partially covered, and it's beautiful. Here we can see again, we have that opening all the way up the stairs. So yeah, the second floor is organized by dynamic environments where active recreation and culture engagement and creative practice coexist with cohesive circulation of framework. So, yep. And then we have our third floor plan. So the basketball court is a double height space, so that's why you're seeing it again. But yeah, we also have our cafe right in the middle, and then we have tech offices, the Center for Innovation, open offices and boardrooms, kitchenette, view deck, and an open terrace. And then we have our fourth floor where we have the Interfaith Center. So that's all here, and then we have like a little seating area and a rental space that can be rented out for revenue. And then, yeah, we also have washrooms, just our typical core. And yeah, this area is mostly used for interfaith, and it's very open to make sure that we're all connecting with each other. So yeah, this is the south elevation. And we have lots of glass curtain walls so you can see everything. And then we have our north elevation. So this is the gymnasium. We ensured that we had lots of light, but they're also dark tinted glass. So you're not going to, have the sun beaming down on you while you're working out or playing any games. And then we have the patio on the right and the sky bridge. And then this is the west elevation. So in the original drawings that we got, there was lots of white accents. So we tried to recreate that in a way that would be cost efficient, as well as a way that we could actually build it. So we went with white window covers, and then we also wanted to include window covers for the top with natural wood. And yeah, so that's the front entrance. We really wanted to make a statement. And then this is the east elevation. So this is on the other side. We recreated what was on the front, but a little simpler. Here we have more of the private areas, smaller buildings. And then on the right there, you have the theater that opens up. And then they also have the gymnasium as well. Yes, and then this is the site. So as you can see here, it kind of shows how the amphitheater works. And then we have ample parking. We made sure that that was all up to code as well. And then 2 exits from the road to make sure that people can go in and out quickly and efficiently. And then this is a building section. We thought this was really cool to kind of show the whole of the building. And then these are our room designs, our room renders. So the features that we used were African darkwood, so a luxury vinyl plank that does contain African timber. The name reflects its deep brown color and grain pattern inspired by tropical hardwoods like wenge and African mahogany. We also have, all of our art is exclusively from African artists. So from Benny Bing, Howard Market, and SWS Group. So these are all Canadian African American artists that are all located within the GTA area. So all of the art that you see there is their real art. And then we have our design strategy. So our maximum occupancy would be 106 guests. So you could have 106 guests sleeping and staying here all at once. And our rooms are designed to provide comfort, privacy, and accessibility while reflecting cultural identity through materials and interior details. So we have a mix of standard rooms, so 2 guests, and executive suites for longer stays. All rooms feature private washrooms and acoustic separation for privacy, fully accessible design with secure deadbolt locking doors. So we have all of the disability up to code. So anyone can use the bathroom, anyone can get to the rooms. It's very accessible. And the design focuses on high quality finishes, easy to clean materials, and integrated cultural elements to create a welcoming and functioning hospitality experience. And then this is our standard double bed guest room. So this is kind of just a render overall. Again, all of the art is by the artists that I mentioned earlier. And this is just kind of a design that we thought worked through a lot of extensive research. And then this is the restaurant. So this is another render. Again, all of the art traditional patterns were used by the artists mentioned, and we tried to add some art and cultural significance into this area. Every single finish, every single piece of furniture is all meticulously picked to ensure that we're really, including everyone's background. So we wanted everyone to feel included. And then this is our aquatics. So we wanted to add a lot of colors as well. And yeah, so this is we wanted to make it feel calm, but also express the heritage that we're trying to build in this building. And yeah, so that's our pool area. And then this is the event hall. So in the event hall, it can be changed out for any type of event that you would like to have. But again, we wanted to emphasize on art and every finish that we could find that was culturally significant. And then this is another way that you could style the event hall. And then this is the main entrance. So this is what it would look like if you're driving up to the main entrance. So we have lots of wood accents. We kept those white accents that you liked as well. And also a lot of indoor-outdoor qualities to this building to make it feel natural and calm and flow. And then this is the other heritage building entrance. So we have lots of open glass, and yeah, it just feels very open and it flows very well. Thank you. We also listed every single finish and artist at the end of the slide. They are all Canadian. So, you know, it's cheaper if we shop from here, right? So, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Beautiful. Please give her a round of hand again. That was beautiful. We thank you so much. We, again, Elizabeth, thank you and your students. You guys are doing a stellar job. Stellar. Does anyone have any comments, any questions? Anything to say about what you just saw? Right? Recommendations. Ifange, you've got something to say? So Ifange is a part of our board at the African Heritage Center.
All right. Unfortunately, we didn't have the model here. To be honest with you, this is not what you've seen. If you are impressed, then you don't even have an idea of what they are talking about. Because when you see the 3D model, it's out of this world. I think these students did so much. My boss was asking me, like, what are these students doing that you always leave work to go and watch them? And I was telling them that I'm learning so much and everybody is going to benefit from it. Believe me, everybody is going to benefit from what you people are doing. Again, I want to use this opportunity to appreciate all the effort that you people have done. And in real life, you are going to have these challenges. Today is your graduation day, so congratulations. You've not just made your family proud, you've made the African Heritage family super, super proud. And we are going to engrave your name on that model, so that definitely you guys are going to have a special place, the whole class. Thank you so much. And I just want to also use I'm coming to you. I just want to also use this opportunity for those who have not seen it or who want to experience that 3D, model. I don't want to call it 3D because it's going to sound, it's a real model. It's a multidimensional. When we have projects like these, I know where we came from to where we are, the struggle, the challenges, and we give these young people to do it. I'm telling you, they just take it and run away with it. They get to areas that those of us who are in the field and we know we've inspired others and we've done a lot of things, they have ideas that we will never think about them, never. They have tactics and a way of operating that we are never going to get there. I'm just saying this because I hear when we're talking about the ancestry, talking about the youth and the school, we need to trust this young generation coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Ifange. Absolutely, our young people will be the driving force behind all of this. And so it is definitely important for all of us to band together to contribute. Okay, please join us in this endeavor to build this wonderful facility, not only for us as individuals, but for the future generations, right? Imagine having a center where everyone will have a chance to benefit. And it's not only for visible Black people, right? It's for everyone who wants to come and learn about us as individual cultures, as well as get to know us and work with us, right? Learn about who we are as a people before making those judgments, right? Because we know everyone has their prejudices and so on. And so we we definitely want people to come and really learn about who we are as much as we will be learning about who we are ourselves. Right? Now, Dr. Collins, I know that you joined us a little late and you didn't really get enough opportunity to speak too much, but can you give us your feedback about what you saw and what you believe can be attributed to the African Heritage Center, and you know what you feel that this will do for the future?
That was impressive. I'm still trying to grasp the magnitude of what that is, and I think that is necessary for us as a people to make it a reality. What I am thinking is, how do we in the Caribbean and in the diaspora, how do we join our resources together to make this a reality? And the sooner the better. I think this is a dream that needs to be sold, and anyone who is inclined to African identity, they're proud of what this is and what it represents. Recently, we've had Obama's presidential center, and I think this as a governing hub for us as a people from all corners of the world. I think this is a necessary Northern Star, and anything that we can, we shall do, and we should make this a reality. This is impressive, and I'm really. Is there a campaign plan to sell this vision and how we in the diaspora can participate? What is the plan in place to make this a reality? So it's not just dependent on those of you who are there, the locals there, but how do we make this an international reality?
You know, I thank you for that. That is definitely a thought. You've kind of put the wheels turning in my head now of how to do that. And I definitely believe that we need to have a campaign going
Yes.
to kind of drive that vision across
Indeed.
not just Canada,
Indeed.
but get it into the US, get it into the Caribbean, get it across so that all our people can see it and gravitate towards it, right? And I do want to encourage us to definitely make it more, make it in a way where, the Caribbean diaspora connects with
let it be
it,
a
right?
trend. Yeah.
We
Let it be a
definitely
trend.
want them to understand that they are a part of this. They're just as valuable, and this benefits them as well. So yes, Dr. Collins, thank you so
And I
much.
think if
Yeah,
there's
no, go ahead, go ahead.
a merchandising campaign, just how do we, is like what is the cost and how do we, have capital raised? It just make this a global campaign, and I think it really sets aside us and I don't want to use the word black excellence, but what we can achieve and I think what would be necessary is information, because I think even this program, how do we now expose this to the world? How do we make it not just for now, but what is planned to have bits and pieces disseminated across all the social media? And I think that is probably a conversation for another time, but this is very exciting. And I applaud the minds behind it. Thank you very much for making me a part of this.
Thank you so much for your comments. Absolutely,
Just
appreciate
a
it.
second.
Andy Funke, you have
Dr.
something?
Arcel, actually, the students actually have a plan for that. They actually design everything. We are going to be, you are part of the plan. So we are going to definitely be reaching out to you. That's definitely a conversation for another day. We'll have to sit down at one time and then go through that plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did
Thank
you
you
have
very much.
anyone? Oh,
We
thank
have
you,
somebody
Dr.
also
Collins.
who wanted to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Maybe I'm asking questions that were already answered and I wasn't completely paying attention. But, okay, so is there an estimated cost of how much this will cost to build? Where is the money coming from? I'm sure that we're going to have to do some fundraising on our own. Is there a committee which has been established? I want to be on that committee because I'm good.
We would love to have you.
I'm good at asking for money, okay?
I love to hear it. I love to hear it.
I want to do that. So definitely can we get started right away? And what's the projected time for this?
Oh my gosh, I love the questions. Okay, so in terms of the estimated cost, I'm going to have Ifunke answer to this. He's been strategic with helping the students.
Yeah, so in projects like this, it's always difficult to have a nailed down cost because it depends on where you put the project, it depends on a lot of things with the time. But a project like this can cost you anywhere from 80 to 120 million Canadian dollars. Michael, who is the founder, you don't know what problem you put yourself in if you want to raise money. Michael is going to haunt you.
We will have a word from
He
Michael.
is the one who's been working every day to raise the money and make sure the money stays in the account. So I'm not very sure right now how much is in the account, but there is some money in the account. So the process that we are doing is the money that we have right now is more like some sort of a low interest investment. So the money does not just stay in the account. So it keeps working for itself. But yes, as I said, the students have given us everything. Where we could raise funds, where we could get grants, where we could get sponsorship, where we could make partnership. It's a whole big document. I think we are going to sit one day and then go through it. As I say, everybody is going to be involved. Everybody. Okay, give me your idea.
That's what we could do. I know. I always wanted to have a dance-a-thon, a walk-a-thon,
Girl.
just things like that to get everybody involved.
I love this lady. Can someone take her number? Okay, so yes, we will definitely get together. We'll implement some of these ideas. You know, we definitely need everyone's input. We need everyone to contribute. If it's $1, send it to us. If it's $5, send it to us. Reach out to your family and friends. You know, spread the word. Let AHC become a household name, a recognized name. Okay, it's a part of who we are. Everyone should know about the African Heritage Center. Everyone should know that it's going to be something grand, something beneficial to each and every one of us. So, and it's going to take every last one of us to get this thing off the ground. The young people have done such a stellar job with the presentation, with building, and I am so proud because I found you guys. I'm so proud. But you know, we want to see their hard work raised up off the ground. Right? I am more excited now than I ever was the first day that Michael stepped into my office and said, join us, right? So I encourage each and every one of us to please spread the word and to please contribute. Become a member, pay your membership fees. You know, it's not much, and you may wonder, what am I getting as being a member now? But don't be short-sighted. I always say, look past your nose, because when you're driving, you don't look at the tip of your nose, you look ahead of you, right? And we are driving not any regular vehicle, we're driving the mothership, right? Because we're trying to get somewhere. So please donate, contribute. You know, every now and then you got an extra $50, send it our way, right? Everything adds up. In Jamaica, we say every miko make a moko. Okay, so if you, and every moko make a kwati or something, I don't know. It lost me after a while. But, you know, everything does add up. So let's work together. Let's get this thing done. All right? Any other comments, questions? David, our beloved David, come on up here. You come to me. Yes, yeah. You haven't seen me in a while. Good to see you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is David. I feel a little guilty because I held back. Then at the same time, I'm glad that I held back because literally my eyes are widened and wow, I'm really informed. So a little bit about myself. My name is David. In Hebrew means beloved. I will fast forward by saying thank you to everyone. I don't want to be in trouble with names, but thank you to our keynote speaker and to all the panelists. I'm very much educated. Now I took time off work. I'm so glad I took time off work because then I can share what I've learned. So, with that being said, I'm very much encouraged to know that I already traced my ancestry since January 21, 2024, and I actually put it on I placed it on my YouTube channel, and I would like to share the results that I have, but then thanks to Dr. Carnes, I guess I have more digging to do, but I'll share upon what I know. So I'm 67.3% Nigerian. That's why at the moment I work at Laura Gardens FEL, where for those who know Finch Avenue West and Western Road, come on, you're gonna get a lot of West Africans and Latinos and so forth. Oh, there we go. But it doesn't stop there. 14.1% Sierra Leonean, which makes sense because that's one of the ports for the slave ships. 7.7% North and West European. Now, this next one threw me off. So if our keynote speaker can chime in with this one, sure, please. I am, y'all ready? Because I wasn't, okay, ready? I'm 4.6% Kenyan. That is the question. So then it goes back to our panelist, our keynote speaker. I guess I have more researching to do. And then I'm 6.3% more ethnicities. So all that to say, I'm so glad that I'm part of the African Heritage Center. I am ready to build. I'm a builder, and I realize I get that attitude, that behavior from my dad. I really help people. I like to really be involved with the community. Speaking about community, I'm celebrating 15 years as a male teacher. So being involved with the community, I realize, wow, I got it from my dad, and that's really good. But I really want to go forward, and the enthusiasm in this room is through this roof, and I'm really excited. So thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Is my microphone down? You can hear me? You hear me? Okay. Thank you for that, David. We are so proud of who you are and having you being a part of the African Heritage Center, and we definitely want more people on board with us. Go ahead.
I have to jump in. One of my engineering friends who is online, he just sent me a message that does my course include the artifacts? So no, artifacts generally have no cost, so they are not included. It's the building, the construction that I was talking about. That so artifacts, paintings, and things like that, especially African textural colors. He's laughing, he knows what he's talking about. Right. Some of the sculptures or paintings or masks that we are going to get is surely going to be donated. We'll hold them for a time, and then we'll return them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, sir, online, and thank you for your response, Ifange. We do have one more question.
I have a comment. Okay.
Comment? Go ahead.
Okay, so about a month ago, Barack Obama was here, yeah, with him having his ancestry in Kenya. Did we ask him for any money? Because we should have. Yeah, he's got a lot. Yeah, so towards the center. So people like these are people that would contribute and that we should be asking, writing letters. So we got to get started on that.
Absolutely, we are right there with you. We have actually generated a list of prominent individuals that we intend to reach out to. So there is some legwork to be done with that, but we have started, and please, if you guys know of anyone that we should be reaching out to that perhaps we don't have their information just yet, reach out to us, let us know. But more importantly, help us to get in contact, because having their names is one thing, but getting through that door, because we know they're going to be surrounded by a shield, right? So you know, probably a good 2 or 3 people deep before we can get to the main person. Help us out with that, right? Okay. Any other comments, questions? It's been a wonderful time. I'm glad you had a good time. I have definitely had a great time with hosting this event. I want to thank again each and every one of our panelists that was here as well as online. Dr. Kearns, I want to thank you for that wonderful presentation. It has certainly opened up our eyes, our understanding to Ancestry, the valuable, its value rather, that it brings to each and every one of us individually as well as collectively. It's so important to know our history, to know who we are, where we come from, and I think it will definitely bring another sense of purpose to each and every one of us, right? As we learn where we're coming from, it brings that extra bit of oomph, you know? You already know you're Nigerian, or you already know you're Jamaican, and I say those two because like, those two are the loudest. So it's nice when you have that extra bit to say, oh, I can connect to this community or that community because it's in my blood. And now you have a conversation, right? Now there's a reason to join forces with someone else from a different culture, right? So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for being with us today. I thank those of you in audience with me. And, you know, with that said, please take out your phones, join us on Instagram. I believe it is at the African Heritage Center, right? And online, we are at www.theafricanheritagecenter.org. On that platform, you can join up to be a member. You can also make donations online. It is secure, so please be a part of that and share the name, share the vision with your friends, your family, you know, coworkers. I don't care what color they are. Share the information because this is too important. It is vital for each and every one of us. With that said, thank you once again for joining us, and I bid you good day.